Throughout history, music's always been more than entertainment. It's been a tool to communicate, to influence, and to shape culture. They call it the universal language for a reason. But what happens when that language starts telling a dangerous story? When the beat is too hot, but the message is weaponized. Today, I want to take you on a deep dive with me into how this specific era of music just isn't the soundtrack of our lives, how it's reshaping how the world sees an entire group of people, and maybe, just maybe, how we see ourselves. I'm pretty sure this has been discussed before, but I've noticed that there's a correlation between the advancements and achievements of Black women and how the media strategically uses some Black women to make sure that the public perception and maybe even our internal self-image stays in its place. And by in its place, I'm referring to how Black women have been historically positioned in society. Let's keep it real. Most folks would agree that in this country, white men sit at the top of the totem pole, then probably white women are next, and other racial and cultural groups are all kind of battling for that middle ground. But Black women, we're usually ranked amongst the lowest in the pecking order. And that's by design. But before I take you on the deep dive into why I suspect we're seeing more sexy reds, greasy booties, and lime green lace fronts and less Lauryn Hills and Jill Scotts, I want to add some context. In one of my previous videos, I had to stop and address a wave of hate and negativity that came my way because a really popular YouTuber misgendered me and made a below the belt, racially insensitive comment at my expense.
Friends, I don't even know if you are a former man, so what? To be completely honest,
did you just say she's a man?
She might be. I don't know. I didn't ask yet, and she looks a little like it. Get rid of this dude.
Do you know my name?
Go crazy.
Do you know my name?
Right. Jamal.
But what happened next? Thousands of teenage and probably older white and white adjacent bros collectively started trying to bully me online. Now, I've been doing this internet for a long time, so of course you can't with people from a private page and assume that you have full anonymity. Now, the people that were with me, I'm probably older than their mothers. And I don't know when I'm gonna release this particular video, but as of right now, I've had conversations with 5 of these bros' parents. And I've gotten some pretty sincere apologies from these kids. One of them even allowed me and insisted that I record the conversation and told me that I could share it with my audience. But call me a softie, I kind of have some reservations about making an example of a 14-year-old kid who was just being a follower. But anyway, that wasn't really about me. It was a cultural wake-up call. But the real story here isn't just gender or even the hate comments. It's about how quickly people are ready to strip women of our identity, our femininity, our humanity, just to keep us in our place. And if you're thinking I'm being too dramatic or too sensitive, or you people are always bringing race into it, yeah, I am, because you are. Now, in case you haven't noticed, I'm Black and I'm also a natural blonde. And there's a really interesting pattern that I've been alive long enough to recognize. Women that look like me, no, I'm not talking about my natural blonde girlies, but Black women are climbing the ranks. Out of any group in America, did you know that we're the highest educated? You didn't know that, did you? We're building businesses, breaking glass ceilings, and simultaneously, the media is cranking up the volume on a whole different image of us. Loud, aggressive, hypersexual, and disposable. And I had to ask myself, is this by coincidence or by design? The public disrespect, the embarrassment, the fallout, it forced me to do this deep dive into something that's been bubbling under the surface. Culturally speaking, y'all really got me and women like me up. I've been making content for over 20 years, and one thing that I've always appreciated is the diversity of my audience. The beautiful thing about that is I get to hear a wide range of thoughts, and whether I ask for it or not, I often find myself standing as a representative for women that look like me, the natural blondes of the world. Okay, that joke is getting old, but let's face it, the white girl in the Midwest might not have one single Black friend. There's a really cool Asian dad in Cali that watches my content. The Middle Eastern teen hears my voice, and they start to understand that the way that Black women are portrayed in mainstream media, that's not the full picture, not even close. So if you know a Black woman, if you love a Black woman, if there's one that you work with, maybe you want to ask that fine sister that you see every morning at your local coffee shop, because we support our small businesses over here, out on a date. Or even if you only have a few minutes to learn a different perspective, or if you're that misunderstood Black girl who's been trying to make sense of why the world sees you the way it does, then I need you to stop scrolling and just listen. Because what I'm about to say isn't just opinion, it's an observation. It's lived experience, and it might shift the entire way you see and treat Black women. And it might give you some insight on the very media that profits from distorting us. This one's for the ones who feel unseen and overly exposed. So let's talk about how we got here and why the world suddenly seems so loud but so intent on drowning us out. And let's talk about what's happening in music. It feels like the world is starting to turn down our volume and turn up something else. Let's start with the numbers, since Jay-Z said they don't lie, even when the media does. According to the latest report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. added over 170,000 jobs last month. And guess what? Black women, the most educated demographic, were the key group that lost the most jobs. Now pause. We've got more degrees than ever, more leadership roles, more business launches. So why is the music industry flooding the charts with Black women who are either pistol whipping in a thong, rapping about robbing men, buying Birkins, or half singing about sexual acrobatics over beats made by people that don't look like us? And this is not respectability politics, y'all. So please, let's not do that in this video.
Catch me outside, how about that?
So put your tinfoil hats on, because here's the conspiracy. The rise of the hypersexual, hyper-aggressive Black female in music, that ain't a coincidence. It's a correction, a recalibration of image to distract, flatten, and control the growing power of Black women. See, when we were twerking for fun, it was cultural expression. Now we're twerking for attention, for industry approval, and algorithm survival. And the industry keeps funding it because it sends a message. No matter how educated y'all get, this is what the world will see you as. Not policy experts, not deans of colleges, not doulas, coders, founders, or mayors, but digital hoes hopping over cute beats. And before y'all jump in the comments, yes, Black women can be brilliant and sexy. Hello! But when's the last time you saw a brilliant side get marketed? Now compare that to the white girls in the industry. Olivia Rodrigo sings about teenage heartbreak, and she's a voice of a generation. Billie Eilish whispers her way through trauma, and she gets Oscars. Taylor Swift, I love Taylor, tells ex-boyfriend stories and becomes a billionaire. But let a Black girl whisper. Y'all are gonna say she can't sing. Let her talk about her pain. Suddenly she's angry and fatherless. So instead, the industry serves up one flavor: bad bitch. And I'm not saying these women aren't talented. I'm saying the machine only prints out one kind of permission slip for Black female fame right now. And it involves ass, attitude, and aggression. So what's the real message? My theory is Black women are getting too powerful, too confident, too visible in rooms that were not built for us to sit at the table. We were only supposed to be serving those at the table. And instead of celebrating it, the powers that be decided, let's shift the spotlight, let's drown them out with decibels of distraction. That's why the charts are crowded with caricatures. No shade to the caricatures. Y'all make fun music. Because if they keep us loud but not heard, visible but not respected, viral but not valued, then they don't really have to deal with us running stuff. For real, for real. Throughout history, Black women have held society together, but have never really been credited for it. We were the caretakers of white children, sexualized objects, mammies, maids, and later we became the backbone of movements that we were not even allowed to lead. Our image has swung between extremes. The strong Black woman that don't need nobody, and the hypersexualized Jezebel who can't control her body or her womb. Even today, we still carry out labor, emotional, professional, and cultural, that keeps the status quo afloat. We raise other people's kids while we're being blamed for how we raise our own. We get degrees, we build businesses, we vote in record numbers, and still we're seen as angry or aggressive or too much. But here's where it gets interesting. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, Black women are the most educated group in the United States. Yep, we're enrolling in college, earning degrees, and starting businesses at rates that outpace every other demographic. We also have the highest rate of participation in the labor force amongst women. We've been called the hidden economy, and at this point, I don't even think it's really that hidden anymore. We're visible, we're loud, and we're in rooms that we used to be locked out of. And think about it. We've been the second in command in the White House. A Black woman is the highest educated first lady in history. We're lawyers, judges, engineers, and CEOs, not just neck rolling, blonde wig wearing, attitudinal welfare queens. Speaking of welfare queens, did you know that President Ronald Reagan's welfare queen narrative was a racially coded political strategy that he used in his 1976 and 1980 campaigns to stroke resentment toward government assistance programs?
Queen. And it was a nickname and a stereotype that really very quickly blew up.
You know, it was a Chicago paper that gave her that nickname, but it's really Ronald Reagan on the campaign trail that makes that phrase such a household idea?
He often referenced a nameless black woman in Chicago who supposedly defrauded the system with multiple identities and claimed a whole bunch of lavish benefits. We later found out that this was exaggerated and largely untrue, but this story became a powerful dog whistle that painted black women as lazy, deceitful, baby-making machines that were dependent on the state. Reagan's rhetoric helped justify major cuts to welfare and social programs, and it permanently distorted public perception of poverty, linking it unfairly to black femininity and fueling decades of hateful stereotypes. So now ask yourself, why is it that just when this particular group of women rise, the music starts to shift? Why is it that when black women begin climbing to the top of academia, business, and government, we start to see a sudden oversaturation of aggressive, hypersexual, violent imagery in our music and media? I remember when Queen Latifah was preaching UNITY, Nina Simone serenaded us with her rallying cry called Force Song. When Neo Soul introduced the delicacy and necessity of black love, James Brown made us all say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And by the way, fun fact, did you know that in 1968 when James Brown released that song, it became an anthem of empowerment? And wouldn't you know that the US government, particularly the FBI, viewed the song's message as potentially destabilizing and revolutionary? James Brown's rise as a political figure and his influence over black communities led to him being surveilled. And he was monitored as a part of the FBI's covert counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO that sought to undermine black leaders and activists. Yes, the FBI had a whole branch just to destroy and disenfranchise black people. Because you can't have us uniting or getting too powerful. At that time, the head of the FBI was J. Edgar Hoover, and he was deeply invested in preventing the spread of black power ideals, especially those expressed through music. Some other black artists that were making black empowerment movement that were also surveilled by the US government were Nina Simone, Sam Cooke, Marvin Gaye, and even later on the rap group Public Enemy. And although he's not a musician either, but worth noting, the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover waged a full-on COINTELPRO campaign to discredit this particular man, including attempts to blackmail him into unaliving himself. That man's name was Martin Luther King Jr. Music has always been a weapon and a mirror. It shapes how the world sees us and how we see ourselves. Historically, whenever black artists have used their platforms to mobilize and uplift their communities, there appears to be a coordinated response from the government entities, major corporations, and music industry executives. Rather than supporting our empowerment, these forces often work collectively to suppress it, flooding the culture with music that promotes division, substance abuse, and violence. The result is a calculated effort to control and pacify the community, replacing messages of unity and progress with those that foster chaos and disempowerment. So when a particular group of us start to ascend, the system begins to kind of recalibrate. Subtle and not so subtle efforts emerge to remind us of our place and to neutralize us. Right now, we're watching a deliberate effort to humble, destabilize, discredit, unemploy, and disenfranchise black women. A group that's become too powerful for comfort. This rise threatens to disrupt the carefully constructed order, one that has long promised certain groups that they'd sit atop the food chain. They've been made a promise that America will be made great again, and it wasn't just a slogan. It was a call to restore a hierarchy. And restoring that balance means strategically moving others out of the way, especially those who dared to challenge it. And right now, the mainstream media sound, the one getting airplay and big streaming numbers and label support, is telling the world that we're only good for sex, that we're always angry, that we'll fight over a man but not our minds, and we twerk our trauma away. I know I sound like an old lady here, but this is real talk, y'all. And here's the most twisted part. The message is not really being pushed by outsiders alone. Often it's black women and black adjacent women performing this content. Even a few white or white presenting women have been propelled to stardom by cosplaying harmful stereotypes of black womanhood. The industry hands them a mic and a mandate. Be bold, be naked, be ratchet, but don't you dare be revolutionary. Now I know what you're thinking. What about Beyoncé? Yeah, Beyoncé has emerged as a not so subtle revolutionary. She's evolved into a global figure who represents black women in their full complexity and power. But let's be honest, they were not ready for a Beyoncé. Nobody could have predicted her transformation from pop princess to Black Panther in stilettos. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this, but the next Black woman to rise to that level of global superstardom will likely have a clause in her contract forbidding her from making overtly pro-Black or racially charged music. We won't see anything like this again in our lifetime. I just feel so blessed to have been able to witness this in real time though. And I can't really blame the young divas of today for keeping it safe, right? For tiptoeing that line and singing songs that fit the industry's agenda. These women just want to have a career. They want to be able to feed their families too. And these are the spoons that they've been handed. They've also seen and been warned of what happens when you push too far. And in a world that rewards silence over substance, survival sometimes means staying in the box, even when you know your power lives outside of it. This isn't just entertainment, it's media warfare. It's programming designed to neutralize the power of a rising group. And if you can't stop women from advancing, you can at least distract them, degrade them, and desensitize the public to their greatness. So when we speak, people laugh. When we cry, people mock. And when we win, people resist. And worst of all, when we try to push back, we get told, well, I mean, you're the ones that's rapping about it. Nah, we're performing the script that's written for us. And it is time to rewrite it. Education is revolution and we're powerful, period. We're already in the revolution. We can be educated and soft, ratchet and righteous, sexy and strategic. But what we won't be, well, what we shouldn't be, is used as pawns in a system designed to silence us with our own voices. So listen, if any of this made you think, I want you to drop a comment. If it made you mad, I want to hear your thoughts. If it made you feel seen, then welcome. My name is Naja and I post videos every week. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. And I'd really appreciate it if you haven't already and you kind of like what's happening over here, then subscribe to my channel, share this video in its entirety or any of the clips, and continue to come back and show love. Let's meet up down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time.